I think we've strayed a little bit outside of the 80s here, just a little bit. This Nazareth, Love Hurts, but it fits the theme of the thing we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about prenups. And there's a story about Johnny Depp that has sort of inspired all this. Johnny Depp has recently been in the news for multi-million-dollar lawsuits, a marriage gone very wrong, and a lifestyle that he can't afford. If you haven't read the recent Rolling Stone article with him, the interview, it's fascinating. It's a really interesting look at someone who has been very famous for a very long time, made a whole lot of money, and then just kind of watched it all melt away. It's fascinating stuff. One of the things that he did that has caused or has complicated his life, I guess, in the last little while, was that he refused to get a prenup when he married Amber Heard, the woman who is now divorced from. And everyone around him, all his advisors, including his sister and a number of other people, said, please, you have to get a prenup here. There's a lot of money involved. And he refused to do it. And I want to find out from my guest right now. Her name is Diane Isaac. She's an associate at the Shulman Law Firm. Hi, Diana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. So let's clear just a couple of the basics up here. What exactly is a prenup?
Well, a prenuptial agreement, which is referred to as a marriage contract in Canada, really is a private contract amongst parties that helps us in advance of a separation decide how we're going to deal with certain legal issues, like your financial issues, how are we going to deal with spousal support. So it helps to provide a roadmap, if you will, as to how to deal with matters when there is a breakdown. And obviously it protects family assets, and if you have a high earning capacity, possible support that you'd have to pay out in the future.
Right. I mean, there's a list here that I have from the Shulman Law Firm, and the top reasons for prenup: protect family assets, older couples entering a second marriage with assets held in a person's name that don't belong to them, protect business interests, people who start earning large salaries early in their careers. And so essentially, you're just, setting the ground rules before, hopefully, knock wood, nothing bad happens, but before a divorce happens, you're setting the ground rules.
Absolutely. I mean, I notice in my experience that more and more contracts are becoming increasingly popular for couples. We're noticing older couples are entering into a second marriage with assets. And for instance, Johnny Depp, we know it's not his first relationship.
Right.
He does have children from a previous one. So I would think that he would want to provide for them. And a marriage contract would have helped protected some of his assets.
Now, how common is it for people to be married for some time, and maybe then, 5 years into the marriage, one of them starts making a whole load of money out of the blue, their career takes off? How common are things called post-nups? And I've heard about this a little bit. People that have been married for a little while, they decide, now we're going to have to make up a contract.
In my experience, I find that prenuptial agreements are a bit more prevalent than post, but I have seen them before in my practice.
Now, what do you say to someone who comes to you and says, you know what, I'm getting married soon. I have loads and loads and loads of money, but I don't want to get a prenup. I think it takes the romance out of this. How do you reason with someone like that?
Well, I start off by saying, you've come to me obviously because you want us to form as your logical piece. And of course, when people are entering into the marriage, they're very romantic. They're dealing with the relationship. They don't want to force the ending it at the inception. But I think that, it's a very costly mistake if at times when people don't kind of think it through. And sometimes people ask me, when is a good time to talk about it? And obviously, the earlier, the better. I think the first date is a little premature. But, that being said, I think you have to have the candid discussion. And if it is about protecting assets, either, handed down from family members or something you've worked hard for, it's important to protect your future.
If you have a prenup, or questions about prenups, you can call me at 416-872-1010, or you can text me at 71010. I'd like to hear what you have to say about all this. So, in your experience, what is the average the ratio of people that get prenups? Is it 50-50? Is it 90-10?
I mean, in not being able to provide some sort of particular number, I would
Right.
say that it's definitely something that is a lot more prevalent. But I mean, I definitely noticed it a lot more in my personal experience, for sure.
Yeah, and these days, with whatever the number is, if 50% of marriages failing, I mean, people should have prenups.
I think it's a good idea, especially if you have to protect business interests. If you believe that there is a potential that you have great earning capacity, more and more, I think the younger generation is understanding that this is something important. And actually, a lot of parents are also promoting it as well, especially if, again, someone is inheriting a particular asset. More and more, you also see parents wanting to know whether that they should actually move ahead their children with a prenuptial agreement.
So there's no real age divide then. You talk about younger people understanding this more and more. So do you see a difference between younger couples or older couples, maybe on their second marriage or third, deciding to get these?
I mean, we see a whole variety, a myriad of people. We see younger people. We see people with on their second marriage. I think a lot more people are turning their mind to this concept, and it's becoming a lot more prevalent.
What would your advice for Johnny Depp have been?
Get a marriage contract, have the candid discussion, and of course the integrity of a marriage contract, requires people to provide full disclosure, and you want to have enough advance time in order to complete one, so that there is no issue of duress or any potential of invalidating a marriage contract. So, at least getting the advice beforehand and then deciding whether you want to go through with it would have been worth it.
And they can be very simple, right? This doesn't have to be terribly complex. Correct. I mean, I think if you have a discussion with the individual and tell them, where you're at, what the big picture looks like, and really the reasoning is to avoid some sort of separation that could be very costly and public in the future. And this is a huge concern for high-profile people. So if you want to avoid potentially a protracted, expensive legal battles, well, then this would be a good idea for both parties. I'm speaking with Diana Isaac, associate from the Shulman law firm. It's interesting to me because so many people that I know don't have wills. And it blows my mind that they don't have wills. And then you talk to them and they'll say, well, it's morbid. I find it morbid to get a will. I think that, when I'm gone, it doesn't matter. The ships will fall where they may. And I kind of feel the same way about prenups. People have this, I don't want to step on the romance here, but this is just the legal, business that goes along with any kind of relationship, right?
Correct. Yeah, I do agree. I think sometimes it falls within the same vein that people don't want to deal with it, but I think it's important to be proactive and think about the future, because sometimes it can help with precluding a messy situation. There is a bit transparency. You can plan your future and you know what to expect. If
I hear Johnny Depp's getting married again, Diana, I will get his number for you. You've been very convincing.
Oh, thank you. Well, if he, we obviously practice in Ontario. It would be very interesting to see how this would have played out.
Absolutely. Well, Diana Isaac from the Shulman Law Firm, thanks so much for giving us some valuable information on prenups.
It's a pleasure. Take care.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.
We're going to take a quick break now. I'm Richard Krause, sitting in for Barb DiGiulio on the night side. When we come back, we're going to talk about Drake and how he's responsible for a good chunk of our tourist economy. Stay with us. Economy, 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 stay.